This room was chill because it seldom had a fire. It was silent. It was silent because remote from the nursery and kitchens. Solemn because it was known to be so seldom entered. The housemaid alone came here on Saturdays to wipe from the mirrors and the furniture a week's quiet dust. The housemaid alone came here on Saturdays. The housemaid alone came here on Saturdays. The housemaid alone came here on Saturdays to wipe from the mirrors and the furniture a week's quiet dust. And Mrs. Reed herself at far in a verse, and Mrs. Reed herself at far in a verse visited it to review the contents of a certain secret drawer in the wardrobe. And Mrs. Reed herself at far in a verse visited it to review the contents of a certain secret drawer. Contents of a certain secret drawer. Contents of a certain secret drawer in the wardrobe, where were stored diverse parchment. Where were stored diverse parchments, her jewel casket, and a miniature of her deceased husband. And in those last words lies the secret of the Red Room, the spell which kept it so lonely in spite of its grandeur. This room was chill because it seldom had a fire. It was silent because remote from the nursery and kitchens. Solemn because it was known to be so seldom entered. The housemaid alone came here on Saturdays to wipe from the mirrors and the furniture a week's quiet dust. And Mrs. Reed herself at Farinaverse visited it to review the contents of a certain secret drawer in the wardrobe, where were stored diverse parchments, her jewel casket, and a miniature of her deceased husband. And in those last words lies the secret of the Red Room. The spell which kept it so lonely in spite of its grandeur. Mrs. Reed had been dead 9 years. Mr. Reed had been dead 9 years. Mr. Reed died. Mr. Reed had been dead. Mr. Reed had been dead 9 years. 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 It was in this chamber. It was in this chamber. chamber가 뭐지? 20페이지. chamber. 뜻이 없네. 예시? 회의실? chamber. 회의실? 뭐뭐1 회의실 chamber. It was in this chamber he breathed his last. It was in this chamber he breathed his last. Here he lay in state. Hence his coffin was borne by the undertaker's man, and since that day a sense of the dreary consecration had guarded it from frequent intrusion. Here he lay in state. Hence his coffin was borne by the undertaker's man, and since that day a sense of dreary consecration had guarded it from frequent intrusion. Mr. Reed had been dead 9 years. It was in this chamber he breathed his last. Here he lay in state. Hence his coffin was borne by the undertaker's man, and since that day a sense of dreary consecration had guarded it from frequent intrusion. A sense of dreary consecration had guarded it from frequent intrusion. My seat, to which Bessie and Miss Abbott had left me riveted. My seat, to which Bessie and the bitter Miss Abbott had left me riveted, was a low ottoman near the marble chimney-piece. The bed rose before me. To my right hand there was the high dark wardrobe with subdued broken reflections bearing the glows of its panels. My seat, to which Bessie and the bitter Miss Abbott had left me riveted, was a low ottoman near the marble chimney-piece. The bed rose before me. 내 앞에 독소사이. The bed rose before me. To my right hand there was the high dark wardrobe To my right hand, there was the high, dark wardrobe with subdued, broken reflection bearing the gloss of its panel. Subdued. With subdued, broken reflections bearing the gloss of its panels. To my left were the muffled windows. To my left were the muffled windows, a great looking glass between them repeated the vacant majesty of the bed and room. My left were the muffled windows. Muffled window. My left were the muffled windows. A great looking glass between them repeated the vacant majesty of the bed and room. 침대와 방의 빈 장엄함을 되풀이하고 있었다. My left were the muffled windows, a great looking glass between them repeated the vacant majesty of the bed and room. To my right hand there was a high dark wardrobe with subdued, broken reflection bearing the gloss of its panels. To my left were the muffled windows, a great looking glass between them repeated the vacant majesty of the bed and room. I was not quite sure whether they had locked the door. I was not quite sure whether they had locked the door, and when I dared move, I got up and went to see. Alas, yes, no jail was evermore. No jail was ever more secure. No jail ever more secure. Returning, I had to cross before the looking glass. My fascinated glance involuntarily explored the depth it revealed. 그것이 드러내는 깊이를. My fascinated glance involuntarily explored the depth it revealed. My fascinated glance involuntarily explored the depth it revealed. All looked colder and darker in that visionary hollow than in reality. All looked colder and darker in that visionary hollow than in reality. 나도 모르게 눈이 경대에 끌려 거울을 보게 되었다. All looked cold. 창백한 얼굴과 팔을 어둠 속에 드러낸 채 고요함 속에 공포에 떨면서 창백한 얼굴과 팔을 어둠 속에 드러낸 채 고요함 속에 공포에 떨면서 나를 뚫어지게 바라보고 있는 모습은 정말 유령처럼 보였다. All looked colder and darker in that visionary hollow. 더 차갑고 더 어둡게 in that 공허한 한상에서 모든 것이 더 차갑고 어둡게 보였다. 현실보다 더 차갑게 보였다. In that visionary hollow. 음프 꺼진 구멍. hollow. Visionary hollow than in reality. And the strange little figure there gazing at me. And the strange little figure there gazing at me with a white face and arms specking the gloom. With a white face and arms specking the gloom and glittering eyes of fear moving where all else was still. With a white face and arms specking the gloom and glittering eyes of fear moving where all else was still. And the strange little figure there gazing at me with a white face and arms specking the gloom and glittering eyes of fear moving where all else was still. Fear moving where the still had the effect of a real spirit. 이게 무슨 소리지? Was a spirit? I felt it like one of the tiny phantoms. I thought it like one of the tiny phantoms, half fairy, half imp. Bessie's evening stories represented stories represented as coming out of Ron. Fernie. Fernie 나타내는 Fernie. Half fairy, half imp. Bessie's evening stories represented as coming out of Ron. Fernie Dales in Moors. Funny Dales in Moors and appearing before the eyes of belated travelers. Belated. And appearing before the eyes of belated travelers. Belated travelers. I returned to my stool. 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 I returned to my I returned to my stool. I returned to my stool. I returned to my stool. Superstition. Superstition. Mission. Superstition. Superstition. Superstition was with me at that moment. Superstition was with me at that moment, but it was not yet her hour for complete victory. But it was not yet her hour for complete victory. But it was not yet her hour. But it was not yet. But it was not yet her hour for complete victory. But it was not yet her hour for complete victory. But it was not yet her hour for complete victory. My blood was still warm. The mood of the revolted. The mood of the revolted slave. The mood of the revolted slave was still bracing me. It's bracing me with its bitter vigor. Its bitter vigor. Its bitter vigor. I had to stem. I had to stem a rapid. I had to stem a rapid. Stem. I had to stem a rapid rush of retrospective. 회고하는. I had to stem a rapid loss of retrospective thought before I quelled to the dismal present. dismal 음울한 솜씨 없는 형편없는 질 낮은 dismal present. quelled 겁을 먹다. Thought before I quelled to the dismal present. 나는 음침한 광경에 기죽기 전에 이 기억이 밀려드는 군류를 막아야 했다. Superstition was with me at the moment, but it was not yet her hour for complete victory. But it was not yet her hour for complete victory. My blood was still warm. The mood of the revolted slave was still bracing me. The mood of the revolted slave was still bracing me with its bitter vigor. Bracing me with its bitter vigor. I had to stem a rapid rush of retrospective thought before I quailed to the dismal present. All John Lee's violent tyrannies. Tyranny. Oh. All John Lee's violent tyrannies. 존 리드의 횡포, 그의 누이 동생들의 거만한 태도, 그의 어머니의 증오, 하녀들의 편애, 이 모든 생각이 마치 흙탕물을 휘저어놓는 듯 내 어수선한 마음속에서 되살아났다. All John Reed's violent tyrannies, all his sisters' proud indifference. Proud indifference. Or his mother's aversion, or his mother's aversion. Or the servants' partiality. All the servants partiality turned up in my disturbed mind like a duck departs in a turbid well. Turned up in my disturbed mind like a duck departs in a turbid well. 이 모든 생각이 마치 흙탕물을 휘저어 놓은 듯 내 어수선한 마음속에서 되살아났다. Turned up in my disturbed mind like a duck departs in a turbid well. Why was I always suffering, always beaten? Why was I always suffering? Why was I always suffering? Always browbeaten. Always accused. Why always accused, forever condemned, forever condemned. 나는 어째서 항상 고통을 당해야 하고 나는 왜 늘 죄를 뒤집어 쓰고 위협받고 비난받아야 하나. 어째서 나는 다른 사람들 마음에 들 수 없을까. Why was I always suffering, always browbeaten, browbeaten, always accused, forever condemned. Forever condemned. Always accused. Why could I never please? Why could I never please? Why was it useless to try to win anyone's favor? Why was it useless to try to win anyone's favor? Why was it useless to try to win anyone's favor? 엘리자, who was headstrong, who was headstrong and selfish was respected. 조지아나, who had a spoiled temper. 걸핏하면 spoiled 버릇없는. 조지아는 who had a spoiled temper, a very acrid spite, a captious 흠잡기 잘하는, insolent carriage 마참 was universally 누구에게나 universally indulge 마음껏 하고 universally indulged. 나는 늘 노력하는데 어째서 사람들이 호응을 얻지 못할까. 고집불통이고 이기적인 일라이자는 모든 사람들이 소중하게 대하고 트집 부리고 독점 갖고 심술궂고 남 비웃기 좋아하고 교만한 조지아나는 누구에게나 어리광을 부려도 괜찮았다. was universally indulged. 조지아나 who had a spoiled temper, a very acrid spite, a captious and insolent carriage was universally indulged. Her beauty, her pink cheeks and golden curls seemed to give delight to all who looked at her, and to purchase indemnity 보상권 indemnity cheeks and golden curls. 그녀의 귀염성, 복스러운 볼, 금빛 고수머리는 누구에게나 호감을 얻는 것 같고 그래서 어떤 잘못을 해도 책망을 듣지 않게 해주는 것 같다. Her beauty, her pink cheeks and golden curls seemed to give delight to all who looked at her, and to purchase indemnity for every fault. and to purchase indemnity. For every fault. John no one the word. John no one the word. John no one the word. 아무도 벌 주거나 말리는 사람이 없다. 존은. John no one the word. Much less punished. 존은 much less 처벌도 거의 하지 않는다. 하물며 처벌은 덜하다. John no one thwarted, much less punished. 왜